Giles Brown Lifestyle.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Bad feeling about this, and thus it came to pass that I was doing bad feeling. I gave one of my finest intros that I think I've ever done in my radio career, and as my Welsh grandmother used to say, and there he was, gone. I was saying retro recipes. It combines the recipes of our youth, or that our mothers or our grandmothers used to make, but put some modern twist on it. The man behind the brilliance of this book is Bobby Hicks, and Bobby, are you there?
I am actually here now.
Right. You see, whenever I give somebody a big intro like that, it is the law of the of Murphy, that that something will happen. And I looked across, and we were on the video, and you had you had your smiling face there, and I thought, he's either gone into rictus now, or it's quit, and he's not there. So whatever. Good afternoon from us. Whereabouts are you, Bobby, today, by the way?
So I am based out of South Florida, and currently right now, instead of actually being responsibly in my home, I'm actually taking a tiny mini staycation on the beach nearby at a cute little hacienda. And unfortunately, that was the reason for my internet being a little less trustworthy. So,
yeah. If you're on a hacienda, you're playing with fire there, Bobby. For those who don't know, just explain. Can you give us sort of the Bobby Hicks 101 just briefly, and how you got to this position where you're writing this particular book?
Yeah, so I am basically a jack of all trades of sorts in the culinary field. I started off with food and beverage as kind of just my intro into this world, and very quickly you find out in the book, if you guys get a chance to check it, but I kind of got my start just working in some kitchens. I had some mentors that really, helped foster this love of cooking for me, and merging that with my interest of video production, it just kind of became a natural fit that just fell hand in glove during the lockdown period, of 2020, when I was still living in New York City. And so, about a year later, I moved down to South Florida. I had a kitchen that I could actually make space to make videos to try to cook in. And I tried a couple of these videos that was just for fun, but realized I really enjoyed it. I really fell in love with the history and, just the the comparisons and differences of, the past to today. And I just fell down the rabbit hole.
What I really like about this book is the fact that I'm born 68, so I'm a 70s kid, and I'm an 80s teenager, so Stranger Things and all that sort of thing, and Partridge Family when I'm growing up. And one thing that struck me immediately of your rather splendid website, by the way, is I recognise that wallpaper. I was a child, I recognised the wallpaper and the fashions, and I was this brought back so much to me, but. You see, I've got a couple of theories on this one, Bobby, because I think that we have time machines, and two of the things that are time machines that will take us back in time are music, because if you hear a track by something that was important when you grew up, you're with the person you're with, you remember what you were wearing, the whole thing, and food, because food hits us, in the gut, basically. And, people remember a great meal, people remember a bad meal, but you remember, your mum's cooking or that little Italian place you found. It really stands out more so than anything else.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree with that. And it actually gets me really excited to hear this because, it's almost the thesis of the book itself is that, I'm not trying to sell you guys just, kitschy recipes that are just kind of, fun to look at or whatever. I'm trying to actually evoke a sense of nostalgia, which is something so much more. And I feel like that time machine that you're talking about is nostalgia. It's something that, it almost makes me think of Interstellar when they're talking about how love transcends everything and gravity and all this other stuff. I feel like nostalgia is an extension of that. And it's something that companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to bottle that lightning. And, most of them don't. And I feel like there's just something incredibly powerful about, when we're feeling nervous, anxious, scared, you want to celebrate. Like we always come back to the things that actually ground us, in this sense of familiarity or comfort, and, these dishes, these meals that, are in the book or that you and I are talking about, it's the exact same thing with music as well. But yeah, it's like that's the through line for everything is that, we need to be embracing our nostalgia just quite a bit more.
And here's the other thing as well, because I mean, people, and there's a basic lack of understanding here, because people say, "Oh, come on, American cuisine, it's the TV dinner, it's the burger, it's the thing," and it's like it's not that. It is the food that is brought from other cultures and then becomes amalgamated, and then it is the Norman Rockwell picture, because the dinner, the family dinner, the Thanksgiving, the Sunday dinner after church is a mainstay. It's the anchor, morally, spiritually, socially, of the family and all the neighbours. I know we're maybe going to back to one picket fences, but you see where I'm coming from here, Bobby.
No, and I absolutely agree with that kind of sentiment. And it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, it's like, we come back to these, and I just think that it's one of those things where it's like, if we can give it a kind of 2.0, a little brush up and just kind of, an oil change here and there for some of these things, then all of a sudden these dishes that might be mocked at and looked at silly, all of a sudden have like a new sense of life again. And to be fair as well, is a lot of the dishes actually in the book, I do give credit to kind of like origins of where they come from, because the United States, it's very difficult for a lot of people to really wrap their head around. But I mean, the United States really is so enormous that it's hard for people, even the States, to wrap their head around. And I think that's what makes it so difficult for people, even in the United States, to actually understand like how diverse our food culture is. I have a recipe in the book called the Country Captain, and that's actually a dish that was kind of created around the kind of colonizing period of time when the English were, doing the spice trade, with India, and they were the transatlantic slave trade and kind of the Caribbeans and all of these influences and touches brought this food to the United States on the East Coast. And this became one of these kind of quiet sleepers that, like when people knew about it, it was incredible, and I think that heritage, that connection to just the world in particular is what makes these dishes so unique, because hot dish is something that we have where it's basically a casserole, tater tots on top, and we can laugh at that. But really, that actually kind of has more of a mainstay root in like a goulash and things like this that was brought from foreigners post-war, and we just fostered our own version of it.
And also, because we're going back to, I mean, it's not a new thing anymore, but the slow food. Our grandparents all did slow food. Our kitchens were slow food. It wasn't fast food. It was something, because perhaps the cut of meat wasn't the best cut of meat, and therefore they knew that you could take sort of, for a beef burger, you just got the cheapest cuts, you put in some wine and you let it sit there all day. There was always a pot coming, there was always a pie going on or whatever, but there was always a pot simmering somewhere.
Yeah. Honestly, I can smell it right now.
So when it comes to actually picking out the recipes, obviously it's a big country. So how do you kind of sort of, excuse the pun, boil it down to a sort of recipes that people can do? Because you could be talking about, I don't know, gumbo or one thing. You're down for, however, New York, you've got the Irish straight, or Boston, you've got the Irish influences. New York, Italian. There's so many different cuisines and so many different family favorites. So how do you pick and choose, Bobby?
Honestly, trying to choose 100 recipes for this book was so much harder than I think anybody would have actually realized. Going back, it's not just, trying to choose dishes that are representative for the 50 states. It's also the fact that I was trying to scale about 100 years, or more of history, So I had to be incredibly selective. And I think this just encourages me to have, like a second book. So, but, it was one of those things where I think the hardest part of this entire experience was just trying to cull it down from, maybe 500 or 600 recipes down to only 100, because, I have 800 cookbooks that are just in my bookshelves right now that are all vintage cookbooks that I've collected. I've read through them all. I really love what I do. And it's just a very difficult thing to kind of, let go of the dishes that you really love.
I'm the sort of person who will browse a bookstore for days on end. But one of the books on my shelves, cookery books on my shelves, is Robert Carrier's Cooking, and it's a proper slice of 1970s. There's a hostess trolley. I don't know if you had those in the States, yeah. And there's a guy one of the with a dinner jacket, but one of those blue ridiculous. He's wearing a blue shirt with one of those ridiculous 70s frills on the front of it, and lapels you could literally land a jet on. I mean, it's just a fantastic bit of kitsch, and that's got to bring the fun to it as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only thing you're missing is a monocle, and then, or just like a giant, the dessert card that goes around, but it has to have kind of just big flames coming off of it from bananas.
Absolutely, flambe. So, we always give or Selena, because they don't let me near the kitchen, or they don't let me near sharp things, obviously, but we're talking about the sophisticated club sandwich. Now, in London, I used to go to a place called PJ's, which was a polo bar, and it did brunch. It was great for Sunday brunch. It was when brunch was a big thing in the early 90s. And club sandwich, one of my favourites. And this is and we'd had a few Bloody Marys at that point because it was Sunday. But this is the sophisticated club sandwich. Tell me how you make a sophisticated club sandwich, please, Bobby.
Well, let me just preface in advance, for anybody that's listening, okay, this is going to sound as absurd as it might be, but I promise you, this is my favorite sandwich. I had to include this.
Right.
So I first discovered this when I was going through the Good Housekeeping's Book of Breads and Sandwiches from around 1958. And I'm thumbing through, just trying to think of something I wanted to make. And I see this called the Sophisticated Club. And I look at it, and immediately I knew I had to make this. So let me break this down. It is a club sandwich with 4 slices of bread. So think of this as literally 3 separate sandwiches put together.
Okay.
So the bottom layer is basically gently toasted bread with a little bit of butter on every slice. And it's going to be cheddar cheese, ham, and pineapple, right? And then next slice of bread is going to be a little bit of peanut butter and coconut flakes. Then the next slice of bread is going to be more buttered toast with some tomato, avocado, and bacon. And then you top that with your final piece of toast, and then just press it down as best as you can, cut it, and just enjoy. And this thing is it hits every palate possible that you could, like every single tonsil and taste molecule. It's honestly so fun. It's texturally adventurous. You have crunchy things and soft things. You have sweet things and salty things. And, it's just a huge mouthful of something very exciting.
And
I encourage you.
I also love the fact that it's got butter. I mean, because this is 58. I mean, we're talking, health,
exactly.
Forget it. Have a cigar whilst you're making it, and then, leap into a large. So just explain, just talk me through gently, because the listeners will be going, good grief. One more time, take me through the sophisticated club sandwich. So off we go again.
Yeah, this is a roller coaster. So so once again, if you're starting this out, you're going to have 4 slices of bread, butter on each one. And then essentially you're going to be laying down some cheddar cheese, some sliced ham, and some pineapple. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of like a Hawaiian sandwich.
Yep.
And then you add on there some peanut butter and some coconut on the next kind of sandwich.
Coconut flakes, not an actual coconut. Otherwise, you will be going to the dentist straight away. So coconut flakes, presumably.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And then the top one is just going to be with some sliced avocado, some sliced tomato, and some bacon. And you top that off with your 4th slice of bread to make a little hat. And good luck finishing it, because it's enough to feed 5 people, but it is so good.
Well, and that's just the kind of starter. What are you hoping that people will sort of? It's a fun book, but listen, we're bringing back serious cooking. We're bringing back proper food. So is that hopefully what you're trying to do with the retro recipes?
Well, I know that there are a lot of eyes that are being rolled right now when you hear that sandwich, but at the end of the day, the book itself is meant to be kind of just a revision, like I said, a 2.0 of these original recipes. So, all these things, when you think of these casseroles, it would call for cream and mushroom soup and a box of canned this or whatever. We're not doing that. I'm actually trying to teach you guys how to recreate these recipes, from scratch, so teaching you, instead of using canned cream and mushroom soup, I'm teaching you to make a sauce supreme, or, teaching you how to make a cartouche, little like tips and tricks and techniques that are going to elevate everybody and kind of dig them out of the hole that I feel was missing from the mid-century period of time. It's like we had all this scarcity, from the Great Depression around the 30s, and then like into the the war period from World War II, and through that we lost so much just word of mouth, kind of like mother to daughter educational lessons that would have been normally passed down. And because we lost all of that, we get into the mid-century, we just have these absurd recipes that are relying around convenience as well, because we had this industrial boom post-World War II. And so people are just riding the easy train at this point. But at that point as well, we didn't have the tools and like the education after about 20 years nearly of just not being taught how to cook from our families. So I think that this recipe is kind of this book is really like my effort to just kind of try to course correct things a little bit, still maintain the integrity of these dishes, even if they're weird. Like there's something beautiful about all of them. And I'm just trying to teach you guys how to do it in a slightly more professional way and just updated for the modern palate. So more salt.
Yeah, I'm just applauding you on that last point, because the connection between food, and how people eat, the way they eat, how they prepare their food. Convenience food is not cheap food, and good food that's healthy for you is stuff that you connect with, and we've lost a generation of that, and it's really important that we get people, because it's not it's not rocket science, it's cooking, and it's good fun, and it's social, and you'd be amazed. Although I've got people going, this whole thing, you've ignited the pineapple on pizza, but you've ignited the pineapple and cucumber. Coconut on club sandwiches. Julie's coming, just no, and it's all in capital letters. So there you go. You've set them off. If people want to find you online and say nice things to you, and honestly, check out the website, listeners, because it is like, for me, this is like being back in my house in the 70s. That look. So where can people find you online, my friend?
Basically across the board on all platforms at Retro Recipes Kitchen, and that's recipes with an S. So my name is Bobby Hicks, and yeah, you can find me anywhere, and I will get back to all of you because I love to actually chat with folks. So feel free to message me.
Brilliant. The book is called Retro Recipes, Vintage Dishes with a Modern Twist. It's by the brilliant Bobby Hicks. Bobby, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.